Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I'm going to be talking about Strange Tales issue number 5. This was a good one. This is a really good one. Of course, I've talked about the first 4 issues from this Volume 1 collection here on my channel at one point. It's in the Things Like Goosebumps playlist thing here on my channel because I talk about a lot of different stuff like this. And this, of course, this whole series of Strange Tales, most of the kind of comics that came out at that time, like the 50s, 60s, because this is made by Marvel before Marvel became Marvel. It was Atlas Publishing or whatever it was. And this is, of course, very much in the vein of like Tales from the Crypt meets Twilight Zone. It's not as smart as Twilight Zone, but it's pretty good for just kind of a fun mixture of horror short stories and sci-fi and mystery and a lot of different things out there, thrillers, all kinds of stuff. I forgot, after I recorded this whole video all the way through, that I actually do small ratings on each of the actual short stories themselves. There's 5 in each issue at this particular point. There were 5 particular stories in each issue. So I want to go back through and re-record the video and talk about each individual ratings for each of the stories, just because I think it matters, honestly. Yeah, where do we start with this? The first story in here is The Room Without a Door. I actually think this was mostly a good story. The finale, I think, is actually really good. I think it's the part that makes the whole story, makes it more rereadable. Essentially, there's a guy who he used to be into science, now he's kind of quit. He's doing like these satanic, occultic rituals now because he wants to learn to time travel, and he realized at one point that that's a supernatural thing, and science can't really explain that well. So he gives up on science. He considers it useless, he stops studying it and everything else. He goes for more of a magic type potential to try to get this thing solved and figure out how to do it. He has a couple of friends that come in and tell him he's nuts. One's a professor, and I think one's just a straight up, like, is he a scientist? Yeah, he's a doctor. That's what it is. But anyway, the main character eventually ends up getting in touch with a witch who is a relative of a witch from the Salem, Massachusetts, Salem witch trials type thing. And it's kind of fascinating. I actually like it. I think the art's very good in this particular issue. Compared to one of the other stories later on in the book that I like, it's called The Trap. And this is a good one. I like it for the most part. I think it has a lot to offer. You kind of see more of the unique formatting throughout the book for comic layout, which you don't see a whole lot of that back in the day. A lot of the time when, like with Stan Lee, when he published Amazing Spider-Man with Jack Kirby, you would see a very basic layout. It would just be kind of like, 2 different panels, 2, 4, 6 down a page, and that's really it. Or you might see like 3 across, 3 in the middle, and 3 at the bottom. It wasn't very creative back then, but this particular issue is kind of well formatted. I really like that. If I had to rate that particular story, The Room That Didn't Exist or whatever it was called, I've already moved off the page on my tablet, so I forgot what it's called. The Room Without a Door is what it's called, I think. That particular story, I would give probably a 4 out of 5. I really like that little short story. Then there's the second story in here that's not really all that great. It kind of sucks. It's called Welcome to the Werewolves. Of course, it's one of those particular things I talk about in all my reviews for these particular stories within these books. They always have a written out novel-like, newspaper-like formatting for these. They're 2 pages long, but they always have one story, a random comic selection, in between the 2 pages. So you have to read half of the story and then finish it up after you finish another story. That's really stupid. I hate that. They weren't doing that at first, and then they did it again, and it's stupid, and I hate that. But anyway, this particular story is about a guy who hunts werewolves, teaming up with a guy who is kind of new to this. Not really that he's working with the guy, but he's kind of leading him into the town. And it just kind of sucks. The twist sucks. It's very dumb. Honestly, it just feels like a waste of time. There's some of these written out stories and some of the first 4 issues of Strange Tales that are so much more creative and so much creepier. Like the one about the man and the woman in the cave. I think that was issue number 2 or 3, somewhere in there. That was a really good little short story to read, and then this one sucks, honestly. Welcome to the Werewolves. If I had to rate this on a 5-star basis as a single short story by itself, I'd probably give this one maybe a 2 out of 5. It wasn't very good, honestly. It was kind of a letdown, honestly, because I was all excited. I was like, we're gonna get a werewolf story, and it sucked. Anyway, the third story in here is called The Little Man Who Was There, and I really, really, really like this story. I think it's a really good one. It's not my favorite of the whole book, or issue, whatever, but I do like it a lot. Essentially, there's a man who is in a shell hole in, I'm assuming, the Vietnam War. I'm assuming he's in military war anyway, and he's hiding out in there by himself, and all of a sudden, A big explosion happens, everybody outside of his shell hole dies. He himself is the only person to survive, but before the explosion went off, he happened to see a small, grinning, short man inside of the shell hole with him, and it kind of scares him. Well, then when he kind of recovers and comes back to health and perfect health in general, he starts seeing this man's face everywhere. And he doesn't know why. He just starts seeing him pop up everywhere, and every time he shows up, something happens, right? Like something horrendous happens. Whether it be to a friend or to a family member or anything like that. It gets really insane, just how wild the story gets. It's a really good one. If I had to rate the little man who was there on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give it about a 4 out of 5. It was really good. Let's see. The fourth story of this book is called The Trap. This one was pretty good too. This is the one I referred to earlier in my review, I believe. If this is the recording that I'm thinking of, then this is the one I was referring to. The Trap has pretty good art in it as well. Essentially, this story is about a man who was on a plane, and all of a sudden the plane went straight up in the air. Instead of, flying across the sky, it turned straight up and went straight up in the air. And when it did that, it took him into this really, really crazy situation where he and a bunch of other passengers are grabbing, like, parachutes and gas masks, air masks, whatever, to try to be able to survive in case anything explodes, or in case there's any chance of being able to survive coming out of this plane on a parachute. And he ends up getting out because the plane explodes, and pretty much everybody dies but himself. And when it comes down onto the Earth atmosphere without burning up somehow, when he's doing that, he has the parachute helping him down, but for some reason it takes him an entire day to get back to the Earth. And he sees some things while he's coming back and when he lands and everything else that happens to him. It's very wild. And a lot of this story is kind of a recollection, I think, of what he saw. Not the whole thing. It's not like the Man on the Beach issue story, whatever, from the last issue number 4 of Strange Tales. It's not like that. It's very different. This whole formatting really confused me until I got to the end of the book and realized what the big twist was. Sort of, kind of, I would say it saves the story a little bit more because you get kind of confused. You're like, this is not all that great, even though it's a 5-page long comic story. It's not all that complex, but it gets a little like, what are you trying to get at with this? Like, what are you doing with this? And then it finally explains itself. It makes a little bit more sense, but it's kind of not the greatest thing ever, so yeah. The Trap itself, I think, is mostly good. Like I said, the art really saves it a lot, too, with the space stuff. That's kind of barely in there, but still. If I had to rate The Trap on a 5-star basis, I would probably give this story maybe a 3 out of 5. It was good. It was good. It was a positive 3 out of 5, like an upper 3 out of 5. Almost closer to like a 4. The last story in this book I actually really love the most. It's called My Brother Harry. Now, My Brother Harry has some really good art in it as well. I love the story. I think the twist at the end is fantastic. It's kind of something we've already seen in Strange Tales by this point. If you've been reading some of these, if you have the Volume 1 collection that I'm reading this out of on my Kindle, then you're probably already familiar with this. But it's kind of the same thing as one story I've read before and talked about here on the channel, but I don't want to spoil which one for you. But I do like it a lot. I think it's a really good, clever story. It is my favorite, if I haven't already said that, of this particular collection. Essentially, there's a man who's a very abusive husband. He has a brother who looks like he's like 60 and has like bifocals. He looks like Commissioner Gordon. He has like gray hair and stuff, but the main character has like brown hair. He looks like a 30-something. So I don't know if that brother is supposed to be like his older brother that he just so happens to bully and beat up. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me. But he's also verbally abusive to his wife. He's beaten his brother up before, and one of the big things that agitates the crap out of him, apparently the brother lives with he and his wife, and this particular brother is very odd. He might be mentally ill. We don't know if he has like some kind of mental issue or whatever, but he keeps talking about how he's seeing their dead mom standing in the room with him. He's been saying this for a while, and he tries to talk to her and hold conversations and everything with her, and it drives the main character, the abusive husband, insane, essentially. He just gets tired of hearing it. He goes off, he punches the brother in the face and everything because he says that the mom tells him to calm down and calls out and says that the brother that's getting beat up is saying things like, "Mom said you turned out really horribly," and stuff like that. It's enough to make somebody understand why this guy would go off and punch his brother in the nose. But the wife and the husband are having a hard time getting along as well because he's so rude and mean to her too. He talks about how terrible her tea is and everything else. And he actually is cheating, sort of, kind of, on his wife. Like, he's going out and he's meeting a woman every single night. I don't think it's alluded to that they had sex or anything like that, but it's more in the sense of he's going out and dancing with her every single night. And at the dance itself, something happens to him, and it kind of sends him on this big like thrill, this big thriller situation, this mystery sort of kind of. Again, it's like a 5-page short story, maybe 4 pages at the maximum, and it's really good. I really like the ending of it. I think it's a really solid story. Again, it kind of shapes out what I would say makes the whole issue overall very good, and I'd recommend it a lot to anybody who hasn't checked out Strange Tales before. If you want a good place to start, this is a pretty good one. It's not my favorite still. I would say my favorite is probably issue number 4. Maybe issue number 2, something like that. I don't remember which one it was my favorite, but it was one of those two, issues 3, 4, or 2. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But anyway, My Brother Harry was a really great story. I really love the twist at the end of it. That kind of explains what the brother that was getting beat up and stuff by the main character, kind of explains what he's doing and why he keeps saying he's talking to their mom and stuff. I thought it was pretty clever, but still, it was more for its time. You know what I mean? Like, it was something that wouldn't work as well for most audiences now, but I was surprised, and I do recommend it enough for anybody who hasn't checked the story out or checked out Strange Tales before, but you happen to like things, like I said, like Twilight Zone and Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, those kinds of things. Again, it's not as smart as Twilight Zone. It's not really an intelligent collection or series or anything like that, but it is creative and fun, like Tales from the Dark Side and Tales from the Crypt, so I do recommend it for that. I think anybody who loves Goosebumps, you'll like this. I really think so, so I wanted to talk about that again. But anyway, when it comes to, if I can bring it up on the screen, when it comes to Strange Tales issue number 5, excuse me, I'm trying to get this off the bottom. Yeah, there we go. When it comes to Strange Tales issue number 5, I recommend it. It's good. I would say if I had to rate this on a 5-star basis overall, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. It's pretty good. Not my favorite, but pretty good overall for a whole collection. I don't know why I've been on a kick to read some Strange Tales here lately. I just have. I haven't done a whole lot of them right now. I've been reading something else that's not Goosebumps right now, novel-wise, that I want to talk about on the channel too. Trying to get some of my bookmarks that I've put in other books out of the way so I can use them for a particular Goosebumps Halloween book before the end of the month. So that's why I'm not really uploading any book reviews at this current moment for Goosebumps this couple of weeks or so, or this week, or whatever it is, however long it takes to finish up the books I'm reading. But anyway, thank you for watching, guys. What are your thoughts on Strange Tales? What are your thoughts on some of these stories I mentioned and kind of summarized for you here on the channel? I'd love to hear what you have to say in this video. The comment section down below would be a great place to hear some of your thoughts on Strange Tales if you happen to love these, like the way I do. Is this your favorite? Or are you more of like an EC Comics type guy when that was coming out with Tales from the Crypt back in the day? Do you like some of the other Atlas stuff, like Modern Love or any of those things? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below. I just enjoy talking about things like this and things like Goosebumps and all that stuff with anybody who will listen and who wants to talk. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless you today, and goodbye.